Okay, so Henry, welcome to The Stranger, a game show, episode one, Henry. Before we get started with the rules of the show, why don't you just give everybody a little frame of what is you and I's relationship? How did you and I get here?
Sure. My name's Henry. I've been a longtime lurker on in the corner, and I met Ethan on the House of Woo like 2 weeks ago now, and just kind of showed up near the end of a conversation and the end of a stream and contributed barely anything. To which Ethan very quickly jumped out and was like, "All right, well, how can we connect?" I'm like, "Well, I have a LinkedIn," and then it was on LinkedIn, and then it was through Gmail. So we've been keeping up on and off through Gmail, and I've had the opportunity to talk with Ethan on the House of Woo, like once for real now in a conversation last week that was pretty legit for a long time too. And then at the same time, this whole thing started getting put together. So that's how I know Ethan, very loosely.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that you and I are strangers to each other.
I would say so. I know very little about you beyond what information's been dispelled on the House of Wu and what little I've seen of the clips about your initial arrival into the corner.
Okay, do you have any questions before we begin?
No, I think I'm good. I
Okay,
think I'm ready.
so so here's what we got today, Henry. I've collected these note cards, which are questions.
Okay.
I've collected these from across the internet. I've texted some personal friends of mine. I will warn you, there are some doozies in here. There are
Okay.
note cards that if I were you, I would not want to pick and have to talk about. Um, but these aren't my questions. These are questions from strangers for strangers. And
Okay.
today you are the stranger. Um, but I will take responsibility. Like these are not my questions, but I will take responsibilities for those questions because this is my game show.
Sure. Okay.
So you can hold me to account. Um, but yeah, so hopefully that's a fair balance.
Sounds good to me.
Um, yeah. So the first point we have is only submit to the question.
Okay.
So don't submit to me. Push back on anything you want to push back on.
Okay.
But there's going to be a lot of questions that appear, and whatever that means for you to engage with the question, engage with the question. Don't engage with me.
I see. Okay. So you're facilitator only of the questions by which come up.
The second thing is I'm going to need you to adopt the role of the stranger.
Okay.
So you and I are estranged. If anyone's watching or people who might end up watching, you are a stranger to them, and I don't really know you. We, the internet, the world, doesn't. But you have a world that knows you.
Yes.
I hope. I hope you have a world that knows you. But for now, you are the stranger. Is that
Okay.
fair?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go get my
Um,
poncho and my cowboy hat, and we'll get started.
okay. 3 of 4 points. I wrote these points down just before we started, so I don't. We'll see if these points make it to episode two or not. Uh,
Okay.
Feedback's always appreciated. So point
Hmm.
three is share your frames. How do you
Yeah.
see the world? So
Okay.
like for example, I was talking to someone this morning who was like, I'm a Žižekian. So if you don't know Slavoj Žižek, then you're going to have a hard time understanding what I mean by that. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
like I'm aware of Zizek, so it's helpful for me to know that this person I'm talking to is a big fan of Zizek. So I
Sure.
don't know what kind of frames you have.
Hmm.
It could be religious, it could be philosophical, it could be political. Maybe
Hmm.
the way you vote is really important to your identity, and that's like helpful for me to know and others to know your political allegiances. So
Right.
whatever you want to share on how you see the world and is helpful to others. My phone is just blowing up. I guess I should put it on silent. Does that make sense and seem fair?
Yes, that makes sense. You can't have a conversation with somebody without knowing some sort of framework by which to approach them. So, and all
I
my answers are going to be predetermined by that framework.
I, I am leaning in that direction. Yeah, I think that if I can understand at least whatever you tell me are the most important frames you have,
Hmm.
I'll have a better shot at understanding Henry. That's what
Yeah.
I think. We're gonna
Okay,
so we'll see
sure.
what you got.
You want me to give my frameworks now?
Well, yeah, because we're about to begin, so we gotta
I
do it before we
see.
begin.
Okay. Um, I have, I guess to start, I'm in a Southern evangelical tradition that I push back on constantly as an inherent contrarian. So anything that might be presupposed about the church and the space I'm in, you can't automatically assume because in some way I'm going to intentionally or just subconsciously be contrary to it. And I have very metagelical tendencies that have been influenced over the last 5 years. That's one of the frameworks.
Can you define for us contrarian and also define metagelical?
Sure. Um, so in terms of contrary, if kind of the, I guess communion, for example, everybody holds the Zwinglian view of communion as merely a symbolic representation of Christ, whereas because of the metagelical, right, the blending of different traditions in the Christian faith specifically, I would say absolutely not. It's rooted in something far more real and substantial based on something more akin to the Catholic or the Reformed traditions. And so I would push back on that in the church and be very contrary to that. Contrary as well, um, popular fiction and media that comes out, such as like the MCU, especially about 3, 4 years ago, I was an ardent critic of at a time when it was still very well received. And so I'm usually very quick to go against the grain in terms of public perception of something and public opinion. Usually, and it's not out of some sort of malice, it is usually legitimate. And sometimes I do it just to be annoying.
Okay, so and that's key. And then
But if we're doing stuff, I'm going to be, it'll be legitimate reasons I'm running contrary to something, on like something like religion or like politics and faith. I'm not going to be inauthentic and like contrarian to be contrarian. It just might be contrary.
okay, and then metagelical. You used that word.
Yeah, it's that blending of numerous different Christian traditions, usually kind of bred out of this corner. That's that term, right? It's the blending and the influence that the evangelicals have on the high church and the high church has on the evangelical or Protestant low church kind of systems. And so my faith and walk with Jesus right now is a mess and it is defined and kind of influenced by not just the Southern Baptist tradition, but by the Catholic tradition and the Lutheran tradition and others who are in different denominational and faith spaces from me. I have no control over by the influence that I have on it, and I've adopted some of the viewpoints of other places that are outside of the box that I find myself in the space like physically I'm in terms of community and church.
Totally. Okay. Any other frames we should know about that would be helpful for us to understand you?
Um, I have, let me think. I'm pretty pessimistic and jaded, I think, generally. And that's just because of a long history of like medical trauma and some other things growing up as a young kid and just having to deal with. And so I probably act like somebody older than my own age at 24. So if I come off as older than that or more, whatever, it's for a multitude of kind of background and like upbringing, nature of like living with like mostly adults, less exposure socially to people my age and stuff.
Great. Great. Thank you for sharing. Anything
Yeah.
else?
Um, Oh, I use a lot of, if it ever comes up, the synapses that I make in connections for meaning and for illustrations comes from all over the place, whether it is the popular culture that I like and engage with, or it's something that I've recently read or adopted. I'm always very quick to try and like make those connections and share that just because I think it's cool. So if something comes up that I've recently read or have lived in for like ages with like Star Wars or like Lego, and somehow I can finagle a connection there, it's gonna happen.
Great. I love it. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it. If something I
Oh,
guess comes up, can we be like, wait, hold on, this is important?
well, again, you only submit to the question. So at any
That's right.
point, if you
Okay.
need to push against this thing,
Fair
you
enough.
feel free to jump in.
Okay.
Genuinely, thank you for kind of like sharing frames.
Yeah.
I think that often it can be. I don't know if it's scary to share frames or if it's like we get as humans we get worried that if I share a frame you don't have that same frame,
Yeah.
then you're gonna be like excommunicated because only people with the same frames can like hang out together or share the same physical space. I don't know if you
Yes.
relate to that at all.
I joke a lot about getting thrown out of my church because I have contrary views, even though they would never actually throw me out for it. I'm always like, I'm going to say something and this is going to get me out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's nothing extreme, but it is contrary. It runs maybe not necessarily lowercase o orthodoxy to like the rest of the group.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Been there, done that, mate. You'll be okay. You'll be all right. Okay. So point four, I'm going to need one more thing from you. I just need you to accept that for now, um, I am the host.
Okay.
That was easy.
I mean, this is your live stream. You are the host.
Well, so I've got the host jacket on, which means
Perfect.
we can now begin. All right.
Excellent.
The very first question, and this is the only time it will happen this way. The very first question is question zero.
Okay.
After that, you will pick every other question.
Okay. How many
So,
questions are there?
oh, we won't get through them all. No, no, no. These
Okay,
questions
great.
will exist from episode to episode. They may be repeated. There will be new questions that come in. I think there actually might be people in the chat. They might put a question in. I don't really know how this works. I've never done this before.
Sure.
There are some other live streams on the internet. You and I might enter into one of those
Okay.
together via this
Sure.
screen into another screen to see
Yeah.
if we can find a question somewhere else.
All right.
This is going to go off the rails. I promise you that.
Perfect. It's
Um,
not like my day hasn't already. Let's go.
yeah. Okay, wonderful. So this is the first question. Christian Baxter asked me, "What's up? So you want a treat? Let me give my dog a treat first. You want? Yeah, I know. You want a treat? Yeah. Okay. Sit down. Sit. Wave. Uh, wave. Wave. Good girl. People always love the dog
I love
trick.
that. That's a great
That's a
thing. That's so great.
easy way to get them hooked. There you go. Eat it. Enjoy it. Okay, we're gonna return to question zero. This is the first question Christian Baxter asked me during my rando. Check out his YouTube channel. You can find it at Christian Baxter. His podcast is called Yours Truly. Question for you, Henry.
Mhm.
Tell us about the home you grew up in.
Okay. The home I grew up in was pretty nominal. I was born in Washington State and then very quickly moved to Ohio in the Kettering area and lived there for a little while. My parents are pretty nominal as Christians. It was something that was kind of like that cultural background and foundation.
Do
So
you
think,
define nominal?
yeah, nominal in the idea of, sure, I think God is real. Sure, Jesus is my savior, but I'm not going to go to church and I'm not going to necessarily expressly practice that, either due to certain life circumstances or a hesitancy to engage with it. And so think like I had a couple VeggieTales tapes and I might have had a Bible and we were taught, right, very broadly, right, God makes you special. Here's the VeggieTales book and Jesus loves you. And beyond that, there wasn't much exploration of that in my home, except for my grandmother. Um, my grandmother is very close to me, and partly I think was because of kind of growing up early as with all my medical stuff. As a child, she was there for a long part of it, and so I very quickly became friends with her in a real way that I don't think grandparents and grandchildren have. I just talked with her today on the phone, actually. So I used to call her on the phone for hours and would play pretend, and then I would take up her entire time in person when we would see each other when she would be visiting or I'd be visiting her. And
Wait.
oh,
How do you play pretend with grandma on the phone?
oh
What does
man,
that mean?
so as a child, I would call her and I'd be like, "Well, this is I don't know, this is like Buzz Lightyear, and we're playing this, and like you're this character and I'm this character," and I would just like run around the house on the phone. My poor grandmother would be on the other end for like an hour or 2 hours, and whatever's going on in my imagination is probably attempting to be described to her, and she's trying to like engage. I was basically doing D&D on the phone at like 4 years old before I think I ever knew what that was. Just role play and these things with my grandmother because I knew she would do that with me.
That's awesome. Sorry, I interrupted your train of thought. So if you can
That's
return to
okay.
it.
Sure. She was like the big Christian influence on me. When I was in middle school, Like I said, I hadn't grown up in that, but when I would see her, I'd go to Sunday school occasionally. Um, and she was always the big like Baptist in our family, like the only kind of real person of faith, I would say, even to this day. So when we moved to Florida, I was 6. She lived in the North Florida, super close to where we ended up being, and so she would come down for weekends to take care of us if my mother and father were out of town for travel. There came a point where she was like, "Well, I need to find a church if I'm going to be here for enough weekends because I don't want to just, sit at home and not go on a Sunday." Um, she ended up finding the church that I would be in high school and into my community college for the rest of my life. Not for the rest of my life, but up to that point. It was middle school, and I guess it was the spirit. I had this certain desire at some point to want to go to church, and then at the same time, very foolishly, I was identifying myself as a Christian amongst my very, uh, edgy atheist kids. I'm 13 and I'm on the internet, and I've just discovered what this is. I'm like, no, but like, God is real. You can't, say that and stuff. And I had no idea anything. At
Let me
most,
guess. They had responses for you.
probably, but they were all really juvenile. It's like, oh, it's just a book of myths. It's a bunch of fairy tales, and it's like, but I not like I had it a retort. I was no apologist as this 13-year-old who'd never been to church before. Um, but the idea of the concept of God as God existing, being real, was never a question for me, and never a source of concern or turmoil. And so it's always just been like, well, of course he's real. Why wouldn't he be? And that's always kind of how I've adopted it. Anyway, my grandmother finds this church, and because I'm already looking to find a church and I'm friends with her in this way, she says, "Well, you want to come to church with me?" I'm like, sure. So we showed up to a Sunday school, and I walked into the youth building that I would then go to for like 6, 7 years, and just sat myself down on the really nasty old couch. The youth pastor asked me if I wanted breakfast. I said, no, thanks. I had French toast sticks this morning, and then I don't think I ever left. And I just stuck around. Um, my parents were very kind in driving me to church on Sunday mornings and picking me up. Sometimes I would not go to the main service and I would just go to Sunday school because I didn't want to sit there. I was there at Wednesday nights every night. And so they did that diligently until I could drive on my own. And after that, I became
Wow.
this chauffeur in the youth group almost. I would drive people and pick them up. I was there all the time and very quickly involved in service. But even before that, early on, I very quickly kind of picked up intellectually, like, all right, this is Jesus and who he is. This is the significance of the death and resurrection and the nature of him being the Son of God, right? This is God. This is the consequences of sin. This is like the penalty, all this kind of doctrine and stuff. And then the invitation to salvation, right, that comes up in the Baptist church was paralyzing and not something I could confront because the pastor would always be like, if you feel led, come to the altar, right? If you feel God speaking to you, come to the altar. I'm like, well, one, I'm already probably like hormonally stressed out at 13. Two, I'm not the most in tune with my own feelings. Three, I don't really know what you mean by led. I for a long time I think was expecting a prophetic vision, a blazing cross in the sky, like now is the time. This is the moment. And so that gave me a lot of angst at 13, 14. I was like, I want this. I want to be a Jesus follower. I want to be a Christian, but I don't know. Nothing's calling me. I don't feel led. I feel nothing except like frustration.
Can I quickly tell you my favorite story of like 13-year-old existential angst around accepting Jesus?
Yes.
So I have a friend. I'll probably tell this story for the rest of my life. I think it's hilarious. He was probably like your age, that this period, um, and he keeps hearing them say like you need to accept Jesus into your heart, and he is a very anxious person by nature, and he was terrified that they were going to take him to like a back room of church and do some kind of like medical procedure and insert like a tiny little Jesus into his heart. And it wasn't until he finally told someone his fear, and they were like, "Oh no, no, that's not at all what the pastor meant. Like maybe that is kind of like poor language. It just means I don't know what they said, but so yeah, that yes, I hear you.
Yeah. That would almost be easier than a vision. You just get a
It-
medically implanted Jesus. Um, So I think I finally came to terms with it, and it was very much, I think, just an intellectual approach of I want this and I want to participate in this. That and a fear of hell. Those were the things I think that drove me to the faith and kept me there for a long time. And then, like I said, after that, I just that was my life in high school. I didn't do anything but church and chorus at high school, and that was it. I lived in the church and the choir, And in Sunday school every morning and Wednesday nights, I would do like snack duty where you work the little vending staff or the booth. And I loved doing that. So my life was there in the church, and I guess it still is at this point. So that's and I was the lone wolf. That's the other thing, is that I was the lone wolf of my household going to church. My brothers dabbled in it for a moment, I think just because I was doing it, and I don't think I ever saw why I liked it. And it's not something that an oldest child I think can sell. One, because they're the oldest child, and there's these own like reservations with like siblings that exist.
You're
So they
the
never stuck
oldest.
around with it.
Oldest of how
Yeah,
many?
three. So two
Okay.
younger brothers. Um, and I think my parents always thought that I could get them into the church as well. The thing with the nominalism of my parents was, well, church is important and believing in God is important, but we're not going to go because of our own issues. But if you guys go, that's really good. And they never
Yeah.
could get my brothers to go. And there was a time where I think it was my responsibility, and that was not good. And I don't think I ever grasped that, nor I think I could have done that. So my household is still much like that. I'm still very much at home, the only one who practices in the faith, who's the only follower of Jesus, I think, legitimately. My father's coming back around on it, but they want nothing to do with that stuff, and that's been my whole life. So there's always been this kind of isolation and seeking out kind of community since then.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that anytime somebody goes like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this thing, and this thing that I'm gonna do is going to like kind of transform the way I live. Like I'm gonna like maybe speak differently or approach humans differently, or like I'm not gonna behave in certain ways because of this path that I'm on." And if other people are like, "Well, I'm not on that path," that they're yeah, I think that isolation is a good word. But like I mean I don't know. And okay, again, this is a follow up question, so this is not. You
Sure.
can say no follow ups, right? Because again, you're
Yeah.
in charge. Uh, I would hope that the because it's like isolation, but hopefully you can also still remain close. That like it's not like an isolation. It's not a separation. I would hope.
Yeah. I think to a degree there was a separation. Not early on. I think when I left home, the separation began. I don't think I ever had like this, wow, you've changed in character upon, salvation, because I was already a pretty mild-mannered, good kid. And so there was no like major turnaround and life transformation per se. And so things were, I think, just kind of the norm. And then this just was what I did. And this was just what I did and participated in as a kid, with a lot of freedom to do so as well. Um, and I think other things divided, you know, me from my brothers and not quite my family, but I think as I've gotten older, I've seen where the divides and stuff come about. My brothers grew their own friend groups and all that, and so I think some of it was just natural drift before, um, what Lewis talks about in this idea of storge and the familiar, right? This new hobby or the faith dividing families and creating a hostility out of jealousy. None of that came about.
Hmm.
It was just like, this is what I do, right? And that's it. And nobody else wanted to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I it probably wasn't until I was like 25 when my dad and I became friends because it was just like go do football. I did football, so you should do football.
Yeah.
Um, and I went to football camp, but I didn't keep going.
Yeah.
Uh, so my dad and I had a few things we would bond over, but it wasn't until like I left the house. Well, I did come back and live in his basement, I think twice, if I'm being honest. But left the house, separated from myself, proved to my father, yes, I am my own man. And then he was like, "All right, you're your own man now. We can establish an adult friendship,
Right.
but also still have like deep deep family ties, right? Like you still do share blood, and that's really important. So yeah, and what you're 24?
Hmm.
Oh, you got plenty of time. Okay,
Yeah.
so Henry, this is how it works. We got a whole table full of note cards.
Sure.
These are, I got a couple dried up palms from Catholic Mass,
Okay.
which I attended 2 weeks ago. Although for Easter we went to a non-denom church, and that was cool too. So you're gonna have to let me know which card you want to pluck.
15's calling out to me. It's got that underline there.
15. Okay. Okay, 15. Ooh, this is a good one. So wait, bub, I know I'm talking, I'm having fun, and you want to have fun, but I know. Can you lay down? Can you go lay down? You don't want to lay down. That's okay. You can talk, but that's not too much. Well, it's still what's 12:45. Maybe you can have you can have 10 more minutes, okay? And then you gotta take a nap then, okay? Okay. Question 15 from Pastor Paul Vanderclay
Oh
in the
boy.
depths in the depths of an X thread. I found him deep in an X thread, and I got a response. Question: what precious idea that you hold would hurt to lose the most if proven wrong, and how? Which again,
Precious idea.
you have to respond to the question, not
Yes.
to me. But when I
Right.
read that, one of the things I thought was interesting about this question was the and how part. Because it wasn't and why, like, why would it hurt to lose that idea? But it's like,
How would it
how
hurt?
would losing that idea, like, how would carving that idea out of you harm you? And I was like, oh, that how is like the worst part of the question.
Hmm. Oof.
And there's no there's no rush to respond. If you need to take 60 seconds of silence,
Hmm.
this game show here, we like dead air.
Okay.
So yeah, don't there's no pressure here.
All right. This is what I've got. Uh,
Okay.
And it's regards, I guess, to the nature of sovereignty of God and the will of things. And I think if the my precious idea that everything does happen for a particular reason, as minimal the decision or strange the circumstance, and usually this is in reference to much larger kind of concerns, if it was proven wrong that things just kind of happen because things happen, um, and you just live in a sinful world, I think that would crush me in a lot of ways because I wouldn't then be able to attempt to carve out and find meaning in it in certain
Mm.
circumstances. Because without the idea that it occurs for a reason, whatever that might be. Maybe this is a very Candide idea with or Voltaire idea. If I don't have that reason, it's going to be very difficult for me to find a meaning in it. Insofar as like, well, I endured this for no reason, right? But if there is something behind it, there's a cause behind it, um, it makes it easier to confront in some way.
Do you think that's part of the book of Job?
That has a yes. Job has a huge number on like probably deal with that, and I think some of the frustration with that book is that Job has no idea why things occur to him, and they just do happen. And I don't like being Job, and I've been Job, I suppose. And so I would like for reasons to exist for a lack of something happening or something happening in my life. I like there to be sense to it. I like there to be a reason, and I don't like the mystery. And so if I was told it is all a mystery, or that there is no mystery behind it, right, and that it just things just do happen in a chaotic kind of collateral sense, that would do a lot to my perception of uh, suffering, or even for good things to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I so for you, do you feel like hmm, the sovereignty of God answers that for you?
It I'm not a no, it doesn't, but it helps point maybe towards something like that
And
because I
okay,
had
so even something that's just pointing towards something else,
yeah.
that has given you enough stability to move forward in life.
Yes, right. It's the idea of like, well, this happened for a reason. God is sovereign, right? And therefore, if he's sovereign, there needs to be a reason behind these things happening. There's no way it could possibly be chaotic. Things, it shouldn't and it couldn't just happen for its own sake. And so that's enough to keep that there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to my fiance the other day about God, and I think I had told her because like when I was 25, I used to work at this big church, and I left that church for a variety of reasons. Um, and I wandered through atheism and through agnosticism. I wandered through just about every kind of ism that I could find. Um, and I mean, I absolutely was looking for meaning, but eventually became, I'm not looking for meaning. I'm looking for how to create meaning or how to continue creating meaning,
Hmm.
which is kind of that, like, I'm not looking for a fish. Like, I want to learn, how do I fish?
Yeah.
Um, so anyways, I had said to my fiance that, like, for me, the the final blow to my, like, the worldview I was given just at birth and being raised within Christianity, um, was like I stopped believing in the supernatural. So I
Hmm.
just went, it's everything's just material.
Right.
Um, and she kind of laughed. I was like, why are you laughing at me right now? I was like, I'm sharing like things that are like kind of painful. And she goes like, I mean, like everything happens for a reason. So like therefore, like God has to be real. Like I never was like, she was like, yeah, I'm a lapsed Catholic, but I never stopped believing in God. And I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, I don't understand you, fiance. Like how like like how could you anyways? Yeah, so I relate to what you're saying a lot. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I think that's my answer.
I think it's a good answer. You ready for another question?
I am ready for another question.
Okay. Let's return to the table.
Okay.
You are the picker. I am the plucker. Together we tucker out.
What let's see. I'm thinking what's one of those like right beneath the palms? Is that 36 or is that 26?
This
20.
right here.
Oh, yeah. Is that
This would be
26?
20. This would be this is 26.
Let's do 26.
Okay. Yeah, I will give one piece of feedback I've already discovered is that for episode 2 of this, I realized like I'm not gonna have to get all new note cards, which I think I have a solution for because these are pretty good questions. I'd like to hear somebody else answer the
Yeah.
question you just answered. Um, so I have to like re-hide the note cards. Anyways, yeah, we don't need to talk about that right now. Your question is, oh, this is one of my favorite questioners.
Oh boy.
I don't want to pick favorites, but this might be my most favorite person I've met on the internet in the last 2.5 months.
Okay.
So this is from William Branch.
Okay.
Find him everywhere. Question: carrying the the Sefer Torah from the Ark to the Bema, period.
Okay.
What is a Torah honor?
Oh my God.
The question
Carrying.
is carrying the Sefer, Sefer, the Sefer Torah from the Ark to the Bema, period. What is a Torah honor?
From the Sefer, the Ark to the Bema. Uh, what is a Torah honor?
Yeah.
Is it
Huh?
is it somebody designated by which to carry the Torah itself? Somebody who is honorable enough or has honor by which to carry the Torah?
Is that your final answer?
I guess. Yeah.
I have no idea. Branch didn't give any answer, so
Oh shoot. Okay.
yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
Okay. Hmm.
I have no idea.
All right, great.
You're
That's
at the
my
next
answer, I
question.
guess. The guy who's allowed to do it, one of the high priests of the tribe of Levi. There we go.
Yeah, Branch might watch this, and then Branch might respond. So,
I'm thinking let's do number 17.
oh, 17. Okay. Oh, another great one. From a guy who's been messaging me on Signal. He's also sent me a picture of his feet. Kind of weird. I guess he has a YouTube channel. I guess his name is Luke Thompson.
Okay.
Luke Thompson was took a break from live streaming on the internet um, for Lent, and then returned this morning actually.
Okay.
So yeah, you can find. I think Luke Thompson's a pretty big streamer. Does a lot of streams. They're always open to whoever. So he'll
Okay.
throw the stream, what do you call it, the stream link in the chat, and
Okay.
then anybody can just kind of appear on screen. So
Awesome.
yeah, Luke Thompson is a wild ride. I really don't know him at all, but
Okay.
I like
I've
what
heard
I
of his
know.
name.
Okay, here's the question: what are you most afraid of? Not abstractly or theoretically. What actually chills you to your bones? Like, think of an animal shaking after trauma,
Oh,
fear held in the body.
okay. So a physical response to a concrete, not abstract fear. Hmm.
Sorry, I got to text my fiance real quick, but I'm listening.
Sure. I can't be
All
abstract,
good.
so it can't even be a hypothetical.
Okay, the game show is going great.
Man.
I believe so. You want me to reread it?
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
I just don't. I can't remember the last time I was legitimately afraid of something beyond like when I was a child, and they were really irrational fears, but maybe rooted in something meaningful. If I can give that as my answer, to which I will, because I don't have to play to the host. I can play to the question. Um,
That's rule number one. You submit to the
so
question, not to me.
I'm gonna answer this as 5-year-old me, and so the thing that would give me like a legitimate fear is the board game Operation.
Really?
Yes, that game scared the heck out of me as a child. Um, I think it's because it's somebody being carved open on an operating table awake, and you have to like pull stuff out of his body. And I still don't really like that actually. I still don't like that game now that I think about it.
Were you imagining yourself as the thing which was operated on, not as the surgeon?
Probably because I've underwent numerous surgeries, and so that's not something that
Ah,
I like at all. I don't like that idea. I can do like the real hospital, but like simulated hospital stuff or on TV, I'm not about that. I'm not about that at all. And then maybe that's a little bit more abstract, but like that board game scared the heck out of me for years.
well, I don't think that's abstract at all. I mean, that you put
I
that
didn't
as one
think
of your
so.
like central frames was
Sure.
medical trauma, and so
Yeah.
then
Well,
as a
I
child
just
to watch
mean
other children like yeah, that's just trigger, 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 trigger.
well, and then like you have to stick the thing in, and it shocks you if you don't do it. Like, no thanks. I don't want that either. And like his nose lights up. I'm like, this is weird. I don't like this. And so I still, you know what? I still don't like it. I'm gonna say that that's still my fear. I don't want to play that game. It's been suggested to play before. I'm like, no, okay. So there we go.
That's a,
That's my fear. That's my concrete fear, and not my existential one.
that's great. I love that. Thank you. Okay, next question.
Oh, let's see. Let's
You want me to
do what is
pause
that?
here?
54.
54. Where?
It's like underneath the palm branch.
This
Yeah,
one?
that one. Oh, that's 34. Oops. We'll do 34, not
Okay.
54.
Okay. Ooh. Honestly, I don't think there's a question I'm not excited about. Well, that's not true. There's a couple questions that could, yeah. Well, anyways. Okay. From T. Grogan on
Okay.
X,
Yep.
legend. Question:
Mm-hmm.
what are three things you hate about religion?
This is a very T. Grogan question. Um, what are three things I hate about religion?
That's the question.
Sure. I think number one, and maybe this is a paradox because it's important to it. I think a sense of adherence and conformity to a doctrine. But that's
Okay.
that contrarian kind of anti-establishment tendencies kicking in. So I understand and appreciate, and I don't think we cannot have certain rules and dogma and doctrine in place. But I also sometimes feel like that can be, as a contrarian in a space that doesn't always belong, frustrating as a contrarian and somebody who doesn't fit. So that's my first one. And
So
so,
real
and there,
quick then, do you feel like you're willing to like live out that hatred in yourself and like submit the hatred, because it sounds like
yes,
that you are practicing a religion
yes,
and you're saying I really don't like this part of it, but you're also going, even though I don't like this thing, I'm still willing and like interested in like it's meaningful for me to practice this religion.
yes. And if it's not doctrine, it's just rules or bylaws and things and structures that be. So the structure of it I don't like, and at the same time, it's necessary, even when it over encroaches. And I've eaten a lot of humble pie and having to live with that. So I don't like it, and just of like I want to do what I want to do, but I do a lot of stuff I don't want to do, and I adhere to a lot of authority and structures generally that I'm like, this stinks. This could be better, and yet here I am still doing it. I haven't left, so that would be one.
Yeah, I'm really grateful you haven't just left this game show, because it'd be rough if you walked away from these doctrines that we've established here.
Well, it's also extremely chaotic at the same time. So, like I said, there needs to be a balance, but that's a different discussion, and that's not to the question. My second thing I hate most about religion, I don't even know if I would say hate, but maybe not necessarily about religion as a whole, but the nature of maybe smaller scale traditions of things just are the way they are because the way that they are, and they have to be this way. And there is sometimes a lack of challenging certain ways of going about, usually mostly more pragmatic or practical things before it's, really important actual doctrine. So like the smaller stuff, you're like whatever. But then like the actual business of running the religious system, I think sometimes I don't like because it's bureaucracy, and it's usually human bred. And so I take issue with that. I don't like that sometimes, and the red tape that comes with it.
Okay.
And then number three, the thing I hate about religion. Uh, I think I hate that religion as a concept, as a word, does a lot to either throw up particular boundaries and barriers and or creates certain assumptions about individuals in conversation and knowing people if we're talking about framework.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
would
So
be
now summarize those three in a short manner, like
sure. The
bullet points.
uh the three things I hate about religion are the sometimes super strict nature of certain dogmas and doctrines that determine community and space. One, two, the bureaucracy and red tape of the actual structures and people that run it, and then three, the nature of the name that creates presuppositions and barriers amongst people upon introduction to the word, or people who identify as religious or a part of a religion.
If you'll allow a follow up, then why do you still practice religion? If there's three things that you hate about religion that you can name and bullet point, why do you still practice it?
Sure. I still practice religion, Christianity specifically, because Jesus is Messiah, and where else can I find eternal life? In the words of Peter, I have nowhere else could I go. So that's one. That's my big one. Where else would I go?
You only need
Two,
one. If you got,
and that's
you've
it.
got more than one. We've got theses. Let's go. Keep them rolling.
Yeah. Two, it has already and continues to create a sense of, okay, ironically, structure to life and fulfillment and purpose in some way and participation with like a broader group. Uh, it's also provided community for me in a way that other spaces have yet to, or may not be able to. And so, religion as the umbrella by which my community and belonging and following Jesus are under have done a lot for me.
Hmm. That's great. That's really interesting, I think.
So that would be it.
Okay. We're gonna go off script here. We're gonna attempt to go into a live stream that
Okay.
I know is running right now, and we're gonna see if we can't pull a question, collect a question from the live streamers for your next question.
Okay.
Okay, let's X out of this. Let's paste this, entering the studio. Okay, there's sound. Talk about some American. No, we want to mute. We want the camera on. Or Episcopalians who introduced by Pentecostal to the gifts of the Spirit. I hopefully I'm not like interrupting anything, but I'm a bit of an interrupter. But we're muted here, so. Okay, we're in queue.
Okay.
Very specific.
Okay, so we're gonna. Oh, I've got two audios going now. Uh oh. Okay.
Ethan.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Hey, can I ask a question real quick? So I'm hosting a game show right now. We've got Henry here. So
Hi.
for any of you three right here, we're collecting questions. So we'd love if you could ask Henry a question, and then Henry and I can leave, or if you want us to stay, you can hear Henry's answer to whatever question you might have.
Whatever you guys want to do. We're just conversing with Guy right now. But if it's Guy, you got anything for him? I'm at a loss.
One single question. A question for a stranger from a stranger.
What state are you in both metaphysical and physical state?
Yes. Now we're talking. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm in Florida physically as a state, and the actual more esoteric or existential state. I'm, I guess, in a state of kind of tiredness, um, but overall, I think, if not at peace, feeling okay in the present.
Oh, sorry. We interrupted testimony. I apologize.
Have fun, Ethan.
It's wonderful to see you guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah, we didn't know you were doing stuff, but it's just this is when we usually do the house.
This is awesome.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
It's very meta, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, dude, wait,
Yeah.
I want to.
I think we just interrupted a testimony. I might get in trouble for that.
Yikes. It's part of the woo. I don't know.
Okay, well, so I didn't hear. I pressed a button on my phone, and I didn't get to hear your response to. I think it says Guy's question.
Yeah, he said like what state was I in physically? Whoops. As well as other aspects of this like a state of being. So I said I'm in Florida as a state location, and then I said I was tired, sort of, and then I also said I was, if not at peace, just kind of relaxed and kind of just chill right now, and feeling okay or good.
Okay, great. All right. Now we're gonna pick the next question.
Let's see. Number. Let's see. What is that? 43. Let's do
43.
43.
This
Yeah.
this thing here.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Speaking to me.
Okay. From Yawn God, who I saw on
Okay.
camera one time, and he had really cool hair.
Okay.
Question:
Yeah.
Is the sun a liquid?
No, it's a gas. It's a gaseous exploding ball. There's no liquid.
Do you want to think for a second, or you want to go with your gut there?
Let me think for a minute, because I'm sure there's going to be some. Actually, it's this. the sun a liquid? No, it's a gas. I'm not doing this. Yeah, final answer.
Okay. Well, the answer that Yon God offers, which again, I don't know if Yon God's right. Yes. Yon God claims the answer to is the sun a liquid is yes.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up. Do you think that God yawns?
Well, Jesus is the Son of God and is God, and he had to have yawned at least once. And so, yes, God does yawn.
Okay, I have a follow-up to that follow-up. At what point in the story of Jesus do you think he was most likely to yawn?
I think after one of those times in which the crowds are all asking him to do things after he's healed Peter's mother-in-law, and he's spent the whole day doing signs and wonders and healings, right? He talks about in other places, right? I felt my power drain from me. Surely that's it fatiguing or enervating. And so it wouldn't be like a bored yawn. It wouldn't be like, I've been here. He'd be super chill and invested in people. But he would be very tired, I think. And so his yawn would be out of tiredness, out of his physical form.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting.
So that's my answer to that.
Okay. Let's see, it's 111. What do you think? 4 more?
Yeah, we can do 4 more. Go for
4
it.
more?
I'm down. All I got to
Okay.
do is make dinner.
All right, we're going to do 5 more then. We're going to do 5 more of these.
Excellent. 5 more. Let's see. I'm going to throw a curveball on this. You pick the next one because of choice paralysis.
Well, here's the thing. You were the picker. I am the plucker. Together we tucker out.
Oh, that's right. That's part of the rules, and we can't do that. All right, 14.
14.
Is that what I saw correctly? Yes, I did see that.
This here?
Yes.
You're reading upside down.
It's part of my job.
You must teach reading or something.
Something like that. I read upside down sometimes. I've done it.
Okay. From Patrick Wagner on
Okay.
Discord. Question. Is a relationship really a relationship without the risk of rejection? I think that's a good question.
That is a really good one because there's so many implications there if you go like one way or the other. Um, I would say no. I don't think a relationship is a relationship without rejection. And I can qualify it in a couple of ways with like really high risk or strenuous kind of, I think, examples. Um, if I will, with maybe the Four Loves, C.S. Lewis's work. Another framework of mine is a Lewisian frame in like his right, C.S. Lewis's writing. So if we're looking at like familial or like family relationships, people have this assumption, well, it's because they're your parent, they have to love you. I'm like, no, they can also choose to accept or reject you based on their own nature, right? We have examples in the real world of a rejection of the father, a rejection of the son, or vice versa, or the mother to the daughter. And so I think there's always a stress and a tension by which some sort of rejection could exist in the familial sense, whether it's at birth in like development or way later in life due to whatever circumstances. So that's one. Friendships, as wonderful and as Lewis says, almost like unto the angels or something truly spiritual, always runs the risk at some point of some sort of rejection or destruction amongst the friends, usually because of other dynamics in play, not necessarily the thing that binds them, but the things that surround them and some of the other things that they did not initially connect on. And so there's always a risk that friendships might spoil or end. Um, the severity or the chance or the probability by which they end or the risk by which they end is not always the same, but there's always a risk. You can see that in marriage, see numerous examples of marriages either being saved by the individuals, by the two of them, and sticking it out, or the ones in which they very quickly, easily fall apart through rejection of some way, of each other and of the commitment and the covenant they have with one another. And then with God, I think that though the Holy Spirit compels us to Jesus and to salvation, um, I think individuals have also the choice at some point to say, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then reject the father and reject the son. Even if it's temporary, they might be able to, they might come back, but they have the option by which to leave because they didn't count the cost or they don't want to count the cost anymore. And so I think all relationships have a risk.
So the
And that's
question
life.
is a relationship really a relationship
Oh, right. And yes. So
without the risk of rejection?
I see. Yeah, no, I think a relationship cannot be a relationship without the risk of rejection, either up at the immediate set or like later on at some point, because it wasn't clearly defined as to when it was rejection or when the rejection came about.
If there's no risk of rejection, then what is that thing?
I think it's something more primal, like symbiotic or almost parasitic in like a more animal sense. There's
Say
there
more
because
about
otherwise
that.
there's hmm?
Say more
Well,
about that.
yeah, because otherwise there's always the choice to accept or reject the relationship or a point in the relationship, because individuals have a consciousness, as well as agency. And the lack of consciousness or agency, or the lack of critical thought to the nature of the relationship or to it itself and whether to accept or reject, doesn't exist in some of those more like primal kind of relationships and dynamics that happen in animals and stuff. And again, that's what separates us from, I think, the rest in terms of just not necessarily in superiority, but just in the nature of like that we are distinct.
That's really
We
interesting.
we can accept or reject. We have that choice.
Okay. I think that was answered, Henry.
Cool. Glad to be able to answer it. Let's do number 3. I like the number. It's prime and cannot be divisible by anything other than itself, and a number 1, which means it's prime. That was redundant. That was redundant. I'm not a math teacher.
From Matt Krotz,
Mm-hmm.
maker of the ancient North African comic Kyrie.
Okay.
You can find him on Twitter at. Oh, I thought I didn't have this written down. Yeah, Matt Krotz. He makes his comic. I'm gonna buy it, I think, because the artwork is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, really cool. Cool dude. Question. These are commonly sung around the camping ground campfires at TLC conferences. And
Something by Bono.
there is an answer. There is an answer here, so I will.
Sure,
This one
I'm not going
hasn't
to
been.
get it, but I'll just throw out some guesses.
Okay, yeah, throw them out.
Something by Bono.
Okay, that's no, it's not the answer.
Okay, great. uh, I don't know. The I don't know, something from the Beatles.
No, that's not the answer either. No,
There's one response, or there's 3.
no, there's one. These are commonly sung around the camping ground
Oh,
campfires
I
at
see. These
TLC
are
conferences.
so it's like a genre or a type of song.
It is, yeah, it is. There's 2 words. It's 2. The genre is 2 words. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Folk music.
No, that's not the answer.
Darn. I got nothing then. Those are my
Okay.
answers.
Do you want the answer, or do you? Should I just put this away?
I would like the answer. I want to know
You
what
would
are
like,
the common songs. Yeah.
the answer from Matt Krotz reads "Hobo Shanties."
I would not have gotten that.
I didn't think you were gonna get it, but it was entertaining to watch.
Hobo shanties. Okay, I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's a playlist on Spotify for
The
hobo
the
shanties.
TLC playlist. That
I really couldn't say.
Let's see. Let's do 22.
Oh,
Oh man, there's like 3
okay,
and 1.
Henry. Okay, you chose it, not me.
Oh no.
I think we might end with this.
Okay.
We might end with this. I have one final question for you, but
Sure.
yeah, I think this is a really good. I think this is a good sort of ending.
Excellent. I'm
Okay.
glad I picked it then.
Okay. From Grok.
Ooh.
Question. If you could instantly gain one skill from a sci-fi universe, like lightsaber dueling from Star Wars or hacking the Matrix, what and why?
From sci-fi specifically. Okay. Okay. My quick answer is telepathy or like the force, just in the telekinetic sense.
Okay.
Just because I think I like the convenience of being able to just kind of grab things from another space. And I think it'd just be fun to maneuver and manipulate things with that.
Whoa. You want the force just so your life is more convenient?
Yes, I really don't need an energy source that binds us, surrounds us, and blah blah blah. Like, because I'm not particularly interested in Lucas's Eastern thought and philosophy that inspires the Force.
Okay, well then why don't you just go with like X-Men powers then?
I mean, I guess I could, but I was gonna say I think I also like the idea of like the empath abilities that um, what's her face in Star Trek: The Next Generation has, the diplomat lady, just because I think it would be interesting
I
by
can't follow
able
you there.
to Troya, I think is her name. It's Riker's like love interest. She's always there. She's the diplomat. She's not an official Starfleet person. I like the she has like empath ability. She's like I can feel great so and so in this person, and I think it'd be interesting to be able to tap into that to see what people are feeling in some way at any given time. I feel like that would be helpful.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so then I responded to Grok and I
Yeah.
said, no icebreakers, Grok. Make the question matter.
Right. Okay.
So then this is the next question.
Okay.
If you could forgive one person, living or dead, close or distant, for something that wounded you, who would it be? And what would forgiving them free you to become? And if you need to speak in a non-specific manner,
Sure.
like I don't want to,
Hmm.
don't feel like you need to. Again, there's no pressure here, or because I feel like this is kind of like a very personal question, so I don't want you
Yeah.
to. Don't say anything that you would regret saying live on a
Right. Fair
stupid game show.
enough. Sure. See, but this is where the most important things happen, though, are the stupid game shows. So, um, I'll get really deep. I would forgive myself, not for anything in particular, but I think just the way I treat myself and have treated myself in the past.
What would forgiving them free you to become?
I would become probably less neurotic, and I would become a better follower of Jesus, I think.
Hmm. So I pressed Grok again about the kind of question he was offering me.
Yeah.
Because I asked Grok, hey, can you give me a question for a stranger from a stranger?
Yeah.
So I pressed Grok again. I said, now imagine you had a body and bumped into a stranger on the street. What would you, capital Y-O-U, ask them?
Okay.
Oh, and then Grok responded and said, what's the one thing you've learned about life that you wish you could shout from the rooftops for everyone to hear?
Hmm. One thing I've learned from life that I've learned that I could wish I could shout from the rooftops. Hmm. You can play really well or pretty well with a bad hand of cards dealt to you in life.
So then I pressed Grok one last time.
Yeah.
I said, what if you could ask me a question that I'd have to answer honestly? And then Grok responded one last time. So here's the question.
Yeah.
In the face of life's fleeting nature, as echoed by Marcus Aurelius's Meditations on Mortality, the Buddha's teachings on impermanence, and the psalmist's cry that our days are like grass. What is the one truth you found that gives you courage to live fully, even knowing all you love will one day fade?
Jesus Messiah died for me.
Henry, thanks for playing.
Thank you for having me.
We've started as strangers. I feel like we are ending less estranged from one another.
I would agree.
I feel like I know way more about you and how you see the world and how you live in the world. And that's cool because the next time I get to interact with you digitally, I'll be like, oh, I wonder if Henry's saying that because of this other, like, I kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit.
I think so. That'd be super cool. I'm hoping to do more interactions.
Um, so as I undon the host jacket,
Yeah.
do you do you have any feedback that you'd like to offer on the experience?
Yes. I think I like the framework overall, and I think the uh, establishing, I think ground rules, ground framework for the rest of the event is really good. I think that the goal, I understand with the idea of like you address only the question and the question only during the time, I think is really good. And I think maybe in some way, I'm not quite sure in the moment, how to make that more expressly clear, right? Is it more the description of like you have to remove the question from the presenter, right? Is it um, imagine that you're with some sort of chat AI, like some other way to maybe articulate to ensure that the questions are being answered only according to the nature of the question. Um, and I think it was pretty clearly established, but I think in some way, I think it might be more clear.
Okay.
So I think the framework works, and I think that uh, the addressing the question and only the question works as well.
But you're
Um,
saying double down on addressing only the question.
yes. Um,
Okay.
and if you as host are saying, let me do a follow-up question, is that you as the host asking the follow-up question, or is that you, Mr. Ethan, uh, without the jacket, asking that question from under the jacket? And if so, maybe a different, like a hat or something to differentiate the host from Ethan would be used. You know what I mean?
The jacket wasn't enough?
Well, I mean, if you Ethan ask a question, is it Ethan the host or is it Ethan the
Okay,
guy who
but
set the live stream?
point four,
Oh, that's right.
except that
For now,
for
I am just the
now,
host. Ah, oh,
I
man,
am
that's
just the
right.
host.
Never mind. Fair enough. Okay.
But here's the thing: it's your critique. I might be missing your critique.
Well, I think sometimes in the moment, I think you just, and I just like doing that. I think you just operated as Ethan and less the host at certain points in contribution and follow up with your own details and stuff and such. And so that would be the differentiation.
Hmm. It's interesting because I'm not sure Ethan and the host are different people.
Okay,
So it gets tricky there.
fair enough. Well, that's probably for the better. There's no split personas here.
Um, I do have a final question as Ethan though. Now that the host jacket is gone,
Sure.
um, I have a final question, and then I have a request. I think that's all I have left is a question
Okay.
or request. The question is, um, did you learn anything new about yourself in the time we've been here together?
Yeah, I think I've responded with some questions about things I need to like stare at myself and actually do now, in the
Oh,
moment. Hmm.
I've,
You know,
I've
they're
yeah,
like,
I've been there.
it's like they're like gut react. They're like at the same time just quick like gut reaction to questions. And at the same time, it's like, oh, I think because usually, right, when you speak something into existence, it's usually more salient than that which like resides in the mind. And so, unless you're a compulsive liar, I guess, right, what you speak is usually true and reflects something about yourself. And so, what I've said is going to come back at me in some way. And so, my questions about like T. Grok's questions makes me sit back and think about religion and my problems with the structures and what I like and dislike about that space and that entity. And the forgiveness question, I think I'm going to really have to sit and think on. So yeah, I think I learned a little bit about myself.
Yeah. Speaking of forgiveness, I'm gonna send an email and apologize for interrupting a testimony when we finish here, and ask for forgiveness. Because I do feel bad. I was trying to be playful, and I was trying to. I mean, because both you and I met on the House of Woo, so in my
Yes.
head, I'm like, oh, it'd be
Oh,
really
this
fun
will be
to jump into their stream, which is happening at this same time where you and I were free. And I
well.
worried that it was not fun and was done in poor taste, which I accept responsibility for because I own the game show, and so therefore I have to
Sure.
accept responsibility.
Well,
Um,
I think you have enough questions going, whether or not you want to reuse them or not, by which that asking and jumping into a live stream is not necessary, even if it might be fun.
well, and I think that's a really good point. And that's something that I will uh, chew on as well. Okay, so here's my request then my request for you, my request
Yeah.
from you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the right preposition is. Um, I am gonna need you to nominate the next stranger.
Oh,
So
okay.
it can be someone from the digital world that you know enough of that you're convinced like, hey, I could get them, or you could tell me, Ethan, hey, can you could get this person. It could also be like your grandmother who you play pretend with, or a friend, or like
Yeah.
it just the thing to think about here is, I mean, the person has to have some sort of a tolerance for chaos, just because I'm not particularly orderly. Um, and
Yeah.
so they have to be like, this would have to be fun for them, and this would not be fun for everyone to partake in, which is totally fine. Um,
I've got
but
somebody in mind.
I would like the nomination to come from the stranger for the stranger, and
Yes.
for as long as that can keep rolling, because I think that's, to me, that's really important.
Okay. I've got some people in mind. I'd have to
Okay.
ask them now, but I think I've got some.
Okay. Well, I'll if I don't hear from you in like 7 days or something, then I'll bother you.
Yes, sounds good.
Because
You'll get it
because
back to me
I'm
sooner
in
than 7.
yeah I'm in no rush for episode 2 sort of thing. So like,
Okay.
you know, there's no time constraint here as long as we get a stranger from you at some point.
I can do that. Oh, can I shamelessly plug so that I can keep doing things with people online?
Absolutely.
Okay. You can find me on LinkedIn by my first and last name. You can also email me at my first name dot last name at gmail.com. Serious inquiries only.
Is your
Um,
last name? Oh, I see it.
it's coming up on the little stream. I don't know if it's on my
Okay.
like.
I can also write it in the description because
Okay, you can.
I'll end up I'll take I don't know how to do it yet, but I'll take
Yeah,
this off of Substack and I'll put it onto YouTube
yeah.
as well.
Oh,
Um,
you can also find me on Discord because I'm on the Bridges of Meaning Discord, and I lurk there and I save memes from the political meme stream because they're funny sometimes. But that's not my last name. It's my Lego pseudonym. So you can find me at Henry_Bricklighter there, and you can friend me on Discord, and you can talk to me there because I have it on my phone and I can check it there.
Awesome.
Because this
All right,
was
mate.
fun. I'd like to do things like this again.
Well, there's a whole big wide world, and you and I, our craws will path. Our
Yes.
crosses will path again.
Yes, I think they will.
Our crosses will path again.
It's a pretty good
All
line.
right. I'm out. We're
See ya.
out.
Yep.
Later.